In a world far from ours, a group of kids laughed and played outside, their laughter echoing across the mountaintop and through the strange skies. A weird guard kept watch over the children, making sure everything was safe. But then, out of nowhere, a loud noise blasted from the speakers. The kids froze. Without a word, they started to walk into a huge building, as if they had done this before. Inside, they were quickly strapped into chairs, and strange gadgets were placed on their heads. The room was filled with a strange hum, followed by a piercing sound. The kids began to scream, their faces twisted in fear and pain. Hidden in the shadows, a mysterious man watched, his eyes fixed on the strange ritual. Suddenly, the children's screams seemed to create a massive wave of energy, shooting straight into a tall tower. The ground shook violently, leading to a massive earthquake. Just then, far away, a boy named Jake snapped awake, experiencing a similar earthquake. His mother, Lori, stepped into the room, calms him, and says that it was a big one. She then asks him to,
"Come on, get breakfast."
Later, Jake sat in his room, carefully sketching something on a piece of paper. He added the drawing to the growing collection of artwork taped to his bedroom wall. Not long after, he shared his troubling dreams with his mom and his stepfather, Lon. He told them about the screaming children he saw, but they brushed it off, believing it was just his imagination. Later that day, Jake had a session with his therapist. The therapist knew about Jake's dreams and assured him they were harmless, meaningless even. The therapist suggested that the nightmares were likely caused by the unresolved trauma from Jake's father's death the year before. Jake's dad had died in a tragic fire, a firefighter who sacrificed himself to save 5 people. On his way home from the session, Jake spotted someone adjusting their face, which sent a chill down his spine. It reminded him of the creatures from his nightmares, the Tahin, beings who disguised themselves by wearing human skin suits. His fear deepened when a homeless man began talking about the apocalypse, but Jake quickly got on the bus and hurried home. When he arrived, his friend Timmy was waiting for him. Inside, Jake could hear his mom and Lon arguing, but they fell silent when he entered. Lori mentioned a special school for kids like Jake, but Jake didn't want to talk about it and walked away. That night, guilt crept in as he thought about how much he was worrying his mother. He looked at an old newspaper clipping about his father's heroic death and felt a sting of sadness. Jake then pulled down all his drawings from the wall and hid them in a drawer, trying to convince himself that the visions were just dreams. But as soon as he closed his eyes, another vision hit. He saw a man dressed in black burning a man alive and wiping out an entire village. Elsewhere, a man named Roland reported to his father, Stephen, that they had failed their mission. Suddenly, they heard something approaching and prepared for battle. The man in black appeared and, with a single command, made Stephen stop breathing. Roland could only watch in horror as his father died. The man in black warned Roland that even though his magic didn't work on him yet, it would someday. Then, he caught a bullet Roland fired at him before disappearing into the shadows. Jake snapped awake, breathing heavily, and immediately grabbed his sketch pad. He drew the man in black, the gunslinger Roland, and an old, creepy house he had seen in a vision. Desperate for answers, he uploaded the drawing of the house to the internet, hoping someone might recognize it. Soon after, a group of assistants from the clinic came to take Jake back for another session. As he prepared to leave, Jake noticed a strange scar on one of the men's necks, and alarm bells went off in his head. He felt certain these people were connected to the evil he had seen in his visions. He told his parents, but they didn't believe him. Lon was fed up and told Jake to stop being selfish and go to the clinic, where he'd make him go by force. As Jake packed his bag, he saw a notification pop up on his screen. Someone had posted the address of the house from his drawing. Jake hugged his mother, told her he loved her, and then packed his bag preparing to go with the workers, but then...
I'm just gonna get my toothbrush.
He had escaped through the window. The clinic workers quickly realized he was gone and chased after him, but Jake outsmarted them by slipping into the subway. Following the clues, Jake found the house from his vision. It was abandoned, just like in his dreams. He climbed in through a window and explored, unaware of the wooden planks shifting beneath him. He soon discovered a screen with a robotic voice instructing him to enter his destination. Without thinking, Jake punched in the numbers from his vision. A hidden portal suddenly appeared, glowing with high-tech energy. Amazed, Jake threw his shoe through to test it before stepping toward the portal himself. But before he could enter, the floor crumbled, and a monstrous creature made of wood attacked him. Terrified, Jake screamed for the beast to let go, and to his surprise, a strange energy pulsed from him, causing the creature to collapse. Grabbing his backpack, Jake rushed into the portal and was flung into a desert-like world with multiple moons in the sky. It was a strange, breathtaking place, and Jake was too stunned to worry as the portal closed behind him. The planet he entered was called the Midworld. Jake realized the man in black from his dreams was real, and his name was Walter. Walter, a powerful sorcerer, had sensed the unauthorized entry from Earth and immediately opened another portal to investigate the intruder. Meanwhile, as Jake wandered through the wasteland, cold, thirsty, and tired, he spotted something glowing in the distance. It was a recently extinguished fire, with a thermos lying nearby. Jake eagerly drank from it, only to have a gun pressed to his head. Slowly turning around, he saw the figure from his dreams, Roland, the gunslinger. Roland suspected Walter was using Jake to track him and held him at the edge of a cliff, threatening to drop him unless he talked.
I don't know, I swear! I just saw it in my dreams like I saw you!
Jake explained everything, his dreams, the visions, the sketches, and showed Roland the drawings he had made. One of them revealed Walter's base. Roland told Jake to prepare for a long journey, explaining that they would walk to the base. Along the way, he also shared that there were no gunslingers left. Walter had wiped them all out. Back on Earth, Walter arrived at the house with the portal and found a shard of wood stained with blood. One of his Tahin tasted the blood and confirmed it belonged to a young boy of pure power, a psychic. Walter realized that the boy's psychic powers had destroyed the house demon that attacked him. Enraged, he questioned the clinic workers and understood everything there is to know about Jake. After getting the information, he commanded the clinic attendants to kill each other for his amusement. In Midworld, Jake complained about being hungry, and Roland quietly pulled him down to avoid a group of Tahin passing nearby. He shared a rabbit he had caught with Jake, who, in return, asked about the time he had seen Roland fighting in his dreams. Roland told him it was the day he lost his father, Stephen, after Walter made him suffocate by using his power of persuasion. Roland asked him to draw a sketch for him, and Jake drew a circle in the dirt, divided into sections with a stick at its center. He thought it was pointless, but Roland explained it was a map of the universe. The stick represented the Dark Tower, which held all the worlds together. If the tower was destroyed, dark creatures that looked like Demogorgon would enter and bring death and doom to everything. Roland told him that Walter's goal was to destroy the tower and bring his loved ones back to life, no matter the cost. Later that night, Roland considered leaving Jake behind so he could continue his mission to defeat Walter alone. He packed his belongings quietly, but then, out of nowhere, the ground began to shake. A powerful beam of light shot up into the sky, followed by distant, gruesome screams. The next morning, Jake was awakened by a strange feeling that led him to a nearby clearing. To his shock, he saw his father, who explained that while he had died on Earth, he was somehow alive here. Reaching out, he asked Jake to come home. At the same time, Roland awoke from a nightmare where he'd heard Walter threatening him, saying that anyone who stayed with Roland would die. Noticing Jake's absence, he rushed to find him. He arrived just as Jake touched his father's hand, and instinctively, Roland fired at the figure. In an instant, the man transformed into a hideous red monster. Roland shot the creature repeatedly, explaining to Jake that this demon had sensed his loss and taken his father's form to manipulate him. Just then, another monster lunged at them, capturing Roland while chasing Jake. Desperately, Roland freed himself with a dagger, then used his weapon to finish off the demon and protect Jake. Back on Earth, Jake's parents were frantically searching for him. They'd filed several missing persons reports and returned to the house, only to find Walter casually cooking in the kitchen. Lon tried to confront him, but Lori recognized Walter from Jake's drawings. Before anyone could react, Walter used his powers and tells Lon to stop breathing, by which he collapses and dies. Walter then mocked Lori for ignoring her son's warnings, using his powers to torment her with guilt before he left, convinced that Jake was more powerful than he had thought. Meanwhile, Roland and Jake reached a small village where they met a healer named Era. She examined Roland's wound, which was more serious than he had thought, and showed no signs of healing. She then spoke to Jake, revealing that his powers were incredibly strong, possibly greater than anyone she'd ever encountered. She listened to his visions and told him that Walter's base was a 6-month journey on foot. Jake then suggested that Walter must have a portal on Earth that could take them straight to the base. Later, despite the villagers' concerns that using the portal could draw Walter's army to them, Roland insisted it was their best chance. As they prepared the portal, the Tahin did indeed invade, attacking the village and cutting off its power supply. Roland fought to protect the villagers, urging Jake to hide while he defended a family under attack. Realizing that Walter was now aware of Jake's presence, Roland sensed the need to protect him even more. At that moment, Walter was observing the chaos through a magical vision globe. He instructed his followers to capture Jake, recognizing his power as a threat to himself. Jake was soon cornered and kidnapped, but Roland, despite his poisoning, used his gunslinger skills to pinpoint his location and fire a precise shot, rescuing Jake. The portal realigned just in time, and Era warned Jake to be cautious with his powers before they crossed back to Earth. Back on Earth, Roland's injuries worsened, and Jake took him to a hospital. Impressed by the advanced medical treatment, Roland agreed to stay overnight, though he quickly grew impatient and insisted they leave. Outside, they encountered a man who Jake realized was one of the people Walter had kidnapped from another world, hoping to exploit their powers. Jake used his own powers to connect with the man, who gave him directions to Walter's base. When they reached Jake's home, he found his friend Timmy waiting for him, but when he went inside, he was devastated. Lon lay dead, and burn marks on the floor suggested Lori had been killed as well. Walter had left a message for Jake on the wall, taunting him about the loss. Roland warned Jake not to use his powers, as it could expose him to Walter's detection. After regrouping, Roland taught Jake a few combat skills, and they went to a weapons store to stock up. Inside, Roland heard Walter's voice calling him. He fired, but it turned out Walter was only projecting himself using magic. Walter taunted Roland, reminding him that everyone who stayed with him eventually died, while Jake hid outside. Unfortunately, the Tahin spotted Jake and captured him, dragging him toward Walter's base. Roland sensed Jake's distress and pushed himself to the limits, fighting off his injuries to find him. Meanwhile, Walter and his assistants restrained Jake in the massive machine designed to channel his powers to destroy the tower. Walter used painful memories of Lori's death and tells him that Roland was just using him so that he could get to Walter, and pushes Jake into anger, tricking him into releasing more of his psychic energy so that the machine could destroy the Dark Tower. Determined to reach Jake, Roland pushed through Walter's minions, using his keen senses to defeat them one by one. He found Jake just as Walter's assistant tried to stop him. The two fought fiercely, with Roland ultimately overpowering his opponent. As the Dark Tower began to tremble under Jake's unwitting attack, Roland realized that Walter himself was nearby. Walter confronted Roland, using his magic to launch glass shards and cement blocks, wounding him. Summoning a ball of fire, Walter prepared to burn Roland, just as he had done to Lori. Jake, focusing with all his might, reached out to Roland telepathically, urging him to chant the gunslinger's mantra. Roland and Jake spoke the words together.
I do not shoot with my hand. He who shoots with his hand
has forgotten the face of his father.
I do not kill with my gun.
He who kills with his gun
Has forgotten the face of his father.
has forgotten the face of his father.
And with newfound strength, he grabs his gun and fires 2 bullets. They collide with each other, and one pierces Walter's heart. Roland quickly wakes up from the bricks and fires multiple shots at him, ending his life for good. Freed from the machine, Jake reunited with Roland, who fired a final bullet that destroyed the device and stopped the chaos on Earth. As they emerged back into the world, they saw that peace was slowly returning. Roland admitted that he would soon leave, but seeing the bond they had formed, he asked Jake to join him. Jake eagerly agreed, and as the two entered a new portal, Roland declared Jake a true gunslinger,